Who have we got speaking? We've got Justin Keller. He's going to be joined on stage by Anjali Yakundi. Please give a warm welcome to Justin and Anjali.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Anjali.
Hi, thanks everyone for joining us to hear less about AI hype and more about AI driving revenue. So that's who we think we are. My name's Anjali Yakundi.
Yep.
I lead our product marketing team.
And I'm Justin Keller. I lead our growth marketing team, which is, as Kirsty mentioned, part of the team that brought this to life for you all today.
So you saw who we think we are. This is who Dali thinks we are. We uploaded pictures of ourselves at the Great British Bake Off.
Which, huge fan of the Great British Baking Show. I'm glad they took a couple pounds off me. We originally prompted to have Paul Hollywood in this, and no matter how many times we did it, he looked extraordinarily disappointed with us. So we replaced him with a baby giraffe who does look like he's quite pleased to be part of this.
And I don't know if anyone else heard that terrible walk-up song.
So bad.
If you did catch it, that was actually AI generated.
Really, really terrible song. Sorry for putting you all through that. But it's kind of cool that with 2 sentences, you can prompt a song to prompt a song to be written about a giraffe baking a cake. So, I mean, it's kind of cool to be in the future, but why don't you tell us a little bit about how we got here?
Well, so generative AI is just one type of AI. So I'm going to put my professorial hat on very briefly, I won't bore you too long, and talk about all the different types of AI. First, AI is all about human decisioning, things that can typically require human intelligence, but now a computer can do it. Underneath that is a specific type of AI called machine learning. So machine learning is, just as the name suggests, all about the machine dynamically learning and adapting over time without programming or code needed. Next, a subset of machine learning is called deep learning. Deep learning makes much more complex human-like decisions. So it's making multi-leveled or multi-layered decisioning, and it was really inspired by how our brains work. So next, a subset of a subset of a subset, that is generative AI. It utilizes deep learning all to create content. But it's only one part. There's so many other methodologies. And while we might have thought of generative AI only in the last few years, we've actually been on this journey since the 1950s. So in the 50s, Alan Turing wrote a famous paper that maybe a lot of us learned in university, and maybe like me, you've forgotten the name of. But Alan Turing said famously that machines can think.
Yep, and then turned into the second best Benedict Cumberbatch movie of all time in The Imitation Game.
Yes, we need to rewatch that. Yeah. So in the 60s, we might think about chatbots as the thing that we have on our website now, but actually chatbots have been around since the 1960s. The first chatbot named Eliza, and the first robot making human decision. You see it pictured here called Shaky, kind of a strange name.
A little bit weird.
1997, who remembers IBM Deep Blue beating the chess champion? Yeah, it was definitely a cultural cornerstone moment for myself, and I think Justin too, really when AI started to enter our lexicon. 2012, this is when deep learning exploded. It was a man named Gregory Hinton wrote a paper that actually laid out the concept for deep learning. And then 2022, of course, this is what we all know. This is ChatGPT. Since I have so many male pioneers of AI on here, I had to put the now former CTO of OpenAI, Mira Murtai, who's a growing list of women AI entrepreneurs. So we've been doing this for a long time, but we still have a ways to go. So if you Googled for a long time Beethoven, this was the first image that popped up. I don't know about everyone else, but this looks a lot more like Mr. Bean than Beethoven to me.
100%.
Yeah.
But Google got fooled, and it keeps getting fooled. If you Google for a baby ostrich, as so many of us frequently do, the majority of the results right now are all AI generated, which raises a lot of ethical concerns, which is a problem. AI is moving faster than any legislation or policy is going to be able to keep up. So this is something we're going to have to contend with on an ongoing basis. But
I think an even bigger ethical challenge is going to be in the coming years and decades. The biggest carbon emitter is projected to be AI. So Forbes recently said that to actually generate with ChatGPT a single email, it uses enough electricity that is equivalent of about half a bottle of water. So next time you put in like a joke or have ChatGPT make something really simple for you, I think again. I don't think it's going to go away, but it has to actually produce something to be worth these kind of considerations to the environment.
Absolutely. Please prompt responsibly. So we promised less hype and more revenue, and this will conclude the hype section of this presentation. So let's talk about the revenue side.
Justin, tons of financial gains, right?
Actually, not so fast. So our friends at Goldman Sachs put together an index of what they call AI beneficiaries, which is exactly what it sounds like. Companies whose profiles and investment into AI should make them, the outsized winners in terms of the benefits financially that AI is going to bring them. So when they compared all these AI beneficiaries, think companies like Microsoft, like Amazon, like Walmart, to the S&P 500, which is just the 500 biggest companies that are traded on the US stock exchange, they get this graph, which is a little problematic because they are solidly underperforming from 2019 until right now, the average enterprise.
All that hype, but AI is not actually impacting the bottom line yet.
Yet, and that's the thing, right? And so many people, I think especially the people in this room, marketers, are extremely optimistic about the ways that AI is going to help them grow their revenue. So this is a sneak peek at some data that we're going to be releasing on October 29th. Movable Link has teamed up with the Marketing AI Institute, and we surveyed several hundred marketers about many, many things. One of the things in particular is like, what do you think is going to help drive the bottom line when it comes to AI? And this is what they said. Almost 60% said operational efficiency, streamlining workflows is going to be the number one way it helps them to drive revenue growth. Bottom line growth. Revenue growth is the number 2 way. And then number 3 is by providing improved customer experiences. So we're going to take a few minutes now. We're going to go into each and every one of these and give you some real-world examples, starting with operational efficiency. Anjali, tell us what AI can do for us here.
I think, all the marketers who I've been speaking to today, and I've talked to many of you in the past, I've shown this diagram to many people, and I've heard the words, "This is triggering." Like, think about all the rote, boring, manual tasks we have to do to set up our campaigns. So this is where AI can actually help drive operational efficiency by automating our workflows, that rote work that we're doing. It can also help us with creative ideation. Think about it, it's always harder to start from a blank slate than it is to have AI take a first pass and then we iterate and ideate along with it. Next is data analysis. AI excels at analyzing huge sums of data and finding patterns or making inferences. The last is ROI optimization. Thinking about all that data that it can analyze, it can even help us identify where we should or shouldn't be putting budget and money towards which marketing programs. Yep. So Justin, though, this is all great, but can we see some real-world examples?
Absolutely. So let's take a look at Amazon Forecast. This is a great example of machine learning taking way more data than any human would ever be able to parse through in order to deliver business results. They're taking historical data, they're taking customer purchase data, their behavioral data, they're looking at your product metadata, they're looking at what discounts were offered, they're even looking at environmental data. Like, what was the weather like in what part of the world at that time of the year, or how far away from this holiday were we? They take thousands of rows across thousands of tables and turn it into, it even uses its own algorithm to pick its algorithm so that it can optimize the forecasting accuracy. And McKinsey's found that when AI is used in this way, it increases the forecasting accuracy 10 to 20%, which then turns into a 2 to 3% lift in revenue. So if you're the kind of shop that deals in this amount of volume, then using AI to get better supply side efficiency can absolutely have an appreciable impact on your bottom line.
Let's talk about another example. It's Mattel using Adobe Firefly. Adobe, of course, one of our sponsors. Thank you if anyone in Adobe is in the room for the drinks later that we're going to consume. But Mattel is actually leveraging generative AI. And what they're doing is using Firefly to generate background images. So Barbie and Ken, we all know Barbie and Ken, right? A flagship product for them. They spend a lot of time ideating and going through approvals for the background images for their product packaging. And so now using Firefly, they're able to quickly create all these different variations and able to streamline their approval process and make it faster working between those large creative teams and large marketing teams. But enough about operational efficiency. How can we actually drive net new revenue from AI? So Justin, do you want to walk us through?
I would love to. It's a good question because more and more marketers are being tasked with being revenue generators, not just cost centers. Anjali and I are two of those. So some of the ways that AI can be used for revenue growth is one, personalizing better recommendations and offers, right? Understanding who you are, what your interests are, and making better offers in front of you that convert more. Creating better content that keeps you engaged over a longer period of time, increasing your customer lifetime value. Pricing strategies, things like dynamic pricing, understanding what to offer when, so creating more conversions or creating a bigger margin when those conversions do happen. And then lastly, kind of a little bit like we share with Amazon, but optimizing your merchandising and your product mix to fit your audiences. So why don't we take a look at an example that we're all very familiar with, which is Netflix. I'm sure we're all familiar with Netflix's recommendations engine, but I think one thing that's easy to understate about it is just how important it is for the revenue and how they think of the revenue, their recommendations engine in terms of the revenue. So you're at your home, you're on your couch, you're flipping through Netflix, you're not finding anything you want. What do? Well, you may do nothing. You may cancel your subscription and give that money to another streaming service. Netflix thinks about this as a way of consistently putting the right content in there, not to make you a new buyer, but to keep your business. So they estimate that by virtue of having a great recommendations engine, they're reducing their churn by $1 billion a year. So I think a lot of times we think of recommendations engines as a way of increasing average order value, but they're thinking of it as a retention mechanism. So by virtue of keeping the right content in front of them at all times, they're preserving customers and increasing their lifetime value.
Another example of someone who's thinking about growing by retention and growth of existing customers is a large retailer. This is a department store that sells everything under the sun, everything from clothing, handbags, home goods. I think we all know that type of store, right? So this organization had a large email file. And like many of us, 95% of their customers were dormant and disengaged. And so they wanted to use AI to both grow those existing loyal customers, but also awaken those 95% of customers that are disengaged. So by taking this strategy of growing existing customers, both engaged and non-engaged existing customers, they saw massive growth with AI. So they saw almost a 30% lift in click-through rate, but honestly, most importantly, they grew the bottom line, a 33% lift in revenue per send, and a 25% lift in conversion rate. Huge results, all AI responsible.
Huge. All right. Last one of the things that marketers think are going to improve their business performance most is improve customer experiences. Anjali, what do we got?
So I think a lot of us think, oh, you use AI, it's going to sound robotic, right? Like I can tell it's a machine. It's not going to preserve that authentic feel. Never has been more so this kind of perception than in customer service and chatbots. But Justin, in a second, is going to give us the lowdown and how you can actually use chatbots for good and not to sound kind of frustrating or robotic. You can also use AI for content personalization. I think we're all at Think Summit here. We all love content and content personalization. But there's a way to use AI to actually curate content, not to the segment or even micro segment or subsegment, but to the individual. We can also start to use content creation to improve the customer experience. Maybe not, the Beethoven that we saw earlier, but maybe generating elements of an image to actually reach a customer and their needs faster, rather than take months to create new content. And lastly, experience optimization. So today, think about the manual A/B testing process. It's long. We have to set a control group. We have to decide on the test. We have to figure out how to set it up. And then we run it, and then it has to be analyzed. This is a long process, and by the time it's optimized, we may have customers who are already disengaged. AI can actually continuously optimize, making that manual A/B testing irrelevant. But let's see some examples. Justin, I mentioned the chatbots. Tell me more.
I'm sure no one in here has ever had a frustrating experience with a chatbot, but it happens. Actually, it happens all the time. And I, before joining Movable Inc., worked at an AI-powered chatbot company, and the dirty little secret is that's kind of intentional. This is an example of me interacting with Delta's virtual assistant on iOS, and I'm in this situation asking them to help me rebook my flight home from London. Now, would I ever trust AI to do that? Absolutely not. This is where I start typing representative over and over again to get connected to a human. And that is what Delta wants. That's what most people that are employing chatbots want. They want to deflect a small percentage of the questions that could be easily answered by a robot so that they can preserve the valuable human bandwidth that they need to do more important and sensitive tasks like rebooking a flight home on an international trip. But it's not just about deflection and creating more human bandwidth to create better customer experiences. More and more shoppers are wanting to interact with chat. 44% of people say that they would like to interact with a chatbot to help them get better recommendations on their shopping. I literally just did this weekend for the first time. I'm a amateur and average photographer. I wanted to get a new camera, but I have no idea what any of these words mean, so I chatted with them and got an incredible list of recommendations back. And there's a very bright future for this kind of shopping. In the last 5 years alone, the spend has gone from not quite $3 billion to ending this year at $142 billion in chat-assisted retail. So huge amounts of money are happening with chat.
I'll give you another example from Movable Inc. DaVinci. So this is LL Bean. They're a very large US-based retailer who specializes in outdoor gear. Spoiler alert, you'll hear a lot more about LL Bean's use case and actually hear from Devin on a great video that we have on the product keynote. I'll be here in about, I think, an hour and a half, so please come back to hear more. But I want to point out one specific thing that Devin talks about, which is that AI didn't make them feel more robotic, but actually AI helped them be more personal, more authentic, and drive more handcrafted-like experiences. That's because the AI was optimizing at the individual level, and it helped the AI understand you as a person, not you to your lowest common denominator grouped in a segment. Yep. And you had that handcrafted feel because it was only picking content that you selected in the content library. So all that hard work they had put into their branded content and their brand standards was all used by the AI. So you'll hear more about this later, but just to wrap us up here, I think the big point is that humans were always in the loop at LL Bean. Humans were always able to proof what was going out. They were able to pick what content the AI was going to select on, and they were always setting up and had guardrails in place.
I think that's such a critical point to make. Both sides, right? No one wants artificial synthetic experiences. We don't want to buy from a robot, but because humans are always in the loop, we're able to deliver on that humanity side thing of the equation. And that's where all of the applications we've been showing you come into play. It's not meant to be threatening at all. In fact, I hope you all get the point that it's here to be a superpower for you, whether it is creating millions of one-to-one interactions or experiences like LL Bean, or taking a humongous amount of data like Amazon, or dragging through tons of data like Netflix. I got those two backwards. Experiences, Netflix, data, Amazon. All of these things are here to help. And as you're considering the AI transformation that your company will absolutely be going on, just remember that AI is a lot bigger than just generative. And a lot of what we're seeing is happening more on the machine learning side of things.
So we have 55 seconds left.
Oh, we can do this.
We can do this. 3 things to remember as we bring you home. The first, as Justin said, it's not going to take your job. We're marketers ourselves, and I actually think that AI is going to help us do more marketing. The things for why, I don't know about you all, but why I became a marketer, why Justin became a marketer, to be more strategic, more creative, and really think about the customer experience. I didn't get into marketing to do that rote work, and that's what we can have AI do and really assist us in.
And generative AI is fun. It's super helpful getting started. It's also not having an appreciable impact on financial performance yet. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that AI can drive revenue, but not necessarily generative yet.
Third, data and privacy are top of mind. There's a whole world of emerging regulations across regions, and privacy is top of mind. We heard Vivek talking about this morning, but how you think about, is your data going to be trained for these large LLMs, training not just on your data, but to your competitors and their performance? Ask the hard and tough questions about data, security, and privacy of any vendor you pick.
And last but not least, just do something. As long as you're following these guidelines, no action is a bad action. So we finally got a picture of Paul Hollywood looking chuffed. Unfortunately, it's with a robot and not with Anjali and myself. But Anjali, thank you so much. Thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. Enjoy the rest of Think Summit.
Thank you.